Hey everybody, this is Ori from AstroWeb, and I'm going to talk today about a question that I've been asked a lot recently. So I wanted to cover it. It's a pretty short video, but it talks about how to add conversion tracking to Google Ads. So if you're running ads, you're spending money, and money can go very quickly, and you're getting all these stats like how many clicks and how many impressions and all these things that are related to your spending and how your campaigns are, spending your money and doing. But if you don't add conversions, you don't know how your customers and how your visitors are actually converting, right? So you might be spending money, for example, $2,000, but if you didn't track conversions, you don't know if you just threw that money to the trash or you donate it to Google, right? So instead of donating it, let's measure it correctly and figure out how to optimize the campaigns and do better for our business, right? It's pretty simple. So this video is going to talk about how to add conversion data and conversion value. Now, I'm not going to go too much deep into technical things, but I want to talk about the two different main ways. There's kind of two or three different ways you can add it, and I want to share my insight on what's the easiest way to add it. And this applies for most cases, but there's many different types of tracking, so there might be some exceptions, but I'd be happy to answer things in the comments, of course. Okay, so what do you do? So first of all, you go to your Google Ads and you click on Tools and you go to Measurement. We're trying to measure the conversion, so we click on Conversions. Okay, and then if you already have conversions that you've set up, you'll see everything here. If you don't, you'll be able to click on it right here. Okay, so conversion. Okay, now this is my first wizard. So there's a few ways to track it. First of all, if you want to track website conversions, you can click here, and either you're going to have your developer install code on your website with sometimes dynamic code, sometimes it's changing, and sometimes static code that it doesn't change. That might be able for static code to click, copy paste, put it in the correct space. And for a dynamic, they'd have to do some extra code to change things. For example, the amount of money that was in the order. Okay. Other than that, if you have an app, you'd have app instructions. Phone calls would be phone calls, and you can import from other sources, for example, Google Analytics. What I'm going to cover is really these two things today, this and this. This is the most popular ones, and these are these things. So the first one is if I click on website, I'm going to set up a goal one by one by one on every single goal. For example, a purchase, a form filled out, a add to cart, a sign up to newsletter, all these different things. I'm going to have to set up one by one by one. And I think this is not the most convenient way, but this is one of the ways. So once I do it, I'm going to set up my conversion. For example, let's say a purchase. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to set up all of these things, right? So I can specify if the value, right, the conversion and the value. So the value, the monetary value, is the same for every conversion, or if it's different, okay? And does it count more than once, right? So if a conversion, the same customer converted twice, do I only count it once or do I count it twice? And this will matter. This will depend on the different type of conversion. So for example, if it's an order on an e-commerce site, on a shop, I probably want to count it twice if they order twice. But if it's a lead form for a B2B business, I probably only want to count it once. But your business will decide if that conversion is good. So once I set up all these other settings, I'm going to click on Create. And let me go here. I'm going to click on Create. And now I'm going to need to install it. So either one, I actually go here and I click here and I figure out all the code I need to give this code to put on every single page, and this code I need to put on the conversion only. This is kind of a hassle. You have to give your developer, they need to install, they need to test, make sure they don't break anything. Really hassle in my opinion. The other way is Google Tag Manager. This is much, much more convenient. What you can do is if you use Google Tag Manager, you can go and add these tracking conversions. In most cases, in many, many cases, you can add them with clicking. You can have version control and all these great things that Google Tag Manager provides that do not need a developer. You just need a specialist in Google Tag Manager. It's really, really good. I really suggest Tag Manager over installing the code yourself. Why is that? Number one, it's more organized in Tag Manager. Number two, you don't need a developer for it, okay? And number three, you can use these tags in different ways. You can disable, enable as you want, and you can use all the features. This is kind of the most preferred way that I have. If you have questions about Tag Manager, I'll be happy to answer them, and in future I'll make some videos about it. What is the other way that I like to do? I like to do this. Actually, this is my favorite one. I like to go to Google Analytics or the Tag Manager, but definitely not the code. I like to go here to import, click on Google Analytics, and click on continue here. And then I'm going to get a list here, which I don't have, which is I'm going to get a list of all of my Google Analytics goals that were set up, goals and transactions that were set up that I can import. The reason I don't have anything right now is because I've already imported them. And so I apologize for the video ahead of time, um, but I've already imported them. So what would you see actually? So what do you actually see? You would see a checkbox right here. If you click on the checkbox, you just click on next, and you import it. And what would that be? Once you import it, it goes here, conversions, and you would actually see them right here. It was imported from Google Analytics. This is the one I have right here. Okay. Um, so then you would have it, and that's it. It's ready to go. So a few other things I want to specify for this video. Number one, you might have multiple conversions. You need to make sure that if your conversions overlap, right, they're tracking the same thing for whatever reason. For example, someone um, an add to cart is a conversion, and then a purchase is a conversion. You need to make sure that when you get your tracking, when you look at your reports, you don't overlap, because then you're going to think you have better performance of your Google ads than you actually do. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is you need to make sure that you've actually linked Google Ads with Google Analytics. So how do you link it? Okay, so first of all, if you go to Google Analytics, what you can do is you can go to the settings right here, and then you can go to your property, and you go to Google Ads linking, and you're actually going to make sure you link it. So how do you do that? Number one, you have both the same email account. For example, this email, the same email needs to have access to both Google Ads and Google Analytics. And if you do that, you can click on new link, and you can go ahead, find it, checkbox it, go to your section, click on continue, turn on the specific view, okay, for example, and then click on link accounts. Once you do that, everything will sync automatically, everything works nicely, and then you can see it in your Google Ads, and you can import as we mentioned, okay? Now, the last part that's really, really important. Let's say you haven't created conversions or anything in Google Analytics. So maybe you import it, but you have nothing, right? So how do you do this? So two things. Number one, if you have e-commerce, your e-commerce platform should first go to the settings, click on your review e-commerce, turn it on. Turn it on. If you have enhanced, turn it on, set up everything. Make sure your platform sends the code to it. The other way is through goals, and goals have made a ton of videos on this. I'll link in the description. You can create new goals based on events, page views, time of visit, all of these things, right? So I'm going to link it if you have any questions. You can create these really, really easily once you create them, and automatically, once you connect Google Analytics to Google Ads, everything will sync, and you can import them as we showed before in the video, right? Import, click add, etc., etc. So, summary for this video. There's multiple ways to track conversions. You always want to track conversions so you make better decisions, don't throw away money. So how do you do that? You go to the tools, measurement, conversions, click on new, make sure your things are syncing. You can decide if you want code, you want to import from other sources, or GTM, Google Tag Manager. They're both good. Google Tag Manager is kind of better, but it's a little more advanced. This is the easiest way for most people using Google Analytics. Set up your Google Analytics, do all that stuff. If you're not sure, you can ask me questions. I'll be happy to answer. And I really appreciate your guys' time for the video. And I really wanted to make this video because a lot of people have asked me about it lately. And I really think the Google Analytics connection with goals, syncing it to Google Ads is the easiest way, but there's other custom ways to do it. And good luck. Thank you guys.